Professor, what is the BCG matrix?
Sure, I will now explain the BCG matrix. Please listen carefully as it is widely used. The BCG matrix is a model developed by the Boston Consulting Group in 1968 to analyze a company's products using two factors, market growth rate and market share. The BCG matrix is called the BCG growth share matrix, or simply, the growth share matrix, because it analyzes how to manage a company's portfolio using two variables, growth rate and market share. First of all, let's look at the structure of the BCG matrix. By placing relative market share on the horizontal x-axis and market growth rate on the vertical y-axis, a 2x2 matrix is formed, divided into four quadrants as shown in the diagram. Area 1 represents high market growth rate and high relative market share, while Area 2 represents low market growth rate but high relative market share. Area 3 represents high market growth rate but low relative market share, and Area 4 represents low market growth rate and low relative market share. Now let's explain how to calculate market growth rate and relative market share. First, let's discuss the calculation method for relative market share, which is the horizontal axis of the BCG matrix. Relative market share refers to comparing your company's market share with that of the number one company in the market. Therefore, relative market share is calculated by dividing your company's market share by market share of the top company. If your company is the top company with the highest market share, you would calculate it by using the market share of the second-ranking company as the denominator, and the value would be greater than 1. When plotting on a graph, the middle point of the horizontal axis is set as 1.0. Accordingly, the company's product would be positioned on the left if it is the market leader, and on the right if it is not. In other words, the closer the position on the left, the larger the relative market share, indicating the company's product has a competitive advantage. Conversely, the farther to the right, the smaller the relative market share, indicating the company's product is at a competitive disadvantage. Therefore, the horizontal axis represents the company's product competitiveness. Next, let's explain how to calculate the market growth rate, which is the vertical axis. The market growth rate refers to the growth rate of the market in which the company's product is present, and it is calculated by dividing total market revenue for a certain year by total market revenue for the following year. It is important to note that when calculating the market growth rate, the revenue refers to the total market revenue, not the company's product revenue. Also, the growth rate represents the expected future market growth rate, not the past market growth rate. Therefore, the vertical axis represents the future market growth rate, indicating how much the market or industry is expected to grow, i.e., the attractiveness of the market or industry. The middle point on the vertical axis should be set as the value considered optimal growth in the future. In the diagram, it is set at 10%. Thirdly, once the calculations for market share and market growth rate are completed, they can be plotted on the graph. The plotting process involves first marking the calculated relative market share for each product on the x-axis and the market growth rate on the y-axis, and the intersection point of these two lines represents the position of the product. Secondly, the size of the circle drawn at the product's position corresponds to the magnitude of its revenue. For example, for product 1, the market share is 18% and the relative market share is 1.3, and since the circle is the largest, it indicates that it has the highest revenue. For product 3, the market share is 14% and the relative market share is 0.5, and since the circle is the second largest, it indicates that it has the second highest revenue. The same process can be applied to products 2 and 4.
Professor, the BCG matrix still seems somewhat unclear.
Yes, to help Ella understand better, I will now explain it using a case study. The case study is about EU Electronics Corporation's BCG matrix. Ella, could you read the problem for me?
Yes, Professor, I will read the question. The following table shows the revenue and market share of products 1 to 4 of EU Electronics Corporation. Revenue and market growth rates are already given. Problem 1. Calculate the relative market share for products 1 to 4. Problem 2. Plot products 1 to 4 on the BCG matrix.
Thank you, Ella. Now, let's solve the problems. Problem 1. Calculate the relative market share for products 1 to 4. The relative market share is obtained by dividing company's market share by market share of the top company. So, for product 1, the relative market share is 13% divided by 28%, which is 0.464. For product 2, it is 25% divided by 16%, which is 1.562. For product 3, it is 43% divided by 38%, which is 1.132. For product 4, it is 8% divided by 18%, which is 0.444. Problem 2. Plot products 1 to 4 on the BCG matrix. Once the given market growth rate and the calculated relative market share are plotted on the BCG matrix, it would look like the diagram. Product 1 has a market growth rate of 3% and a relative market share of 0.464, so it is positioned in the fourth area, and the size of the circle represents its revenue. Since the revenue for product 1 is $60 million, it has the smallest circle. Product 2 is positioned in the second area with a market growth rate of 5% and a relative market share of 1.562. Since its revenue is $700 million, the circle representing it should be drawn the largest. Product 3 is positioned in the first area with a market growth rate of 12% and a relative market share of 1.132. Its revenue is $160 million, so the circle representing it should be drawn the second largest. Product 4 is positioned in the third area with a market growth rate of 19% and a relative market share of 0.444. Its revenue is $80 million, so the circle representing it should be drawn the third largest. Now, let's interpret the BCG matrix we have examined so far. As seen in the diagram, the first area represents the area with high market growth rate and high relative market share. This is referred to as the star area. The star area has a high market share, indicating high current profitability, and has a high market growth rate, making it a very promising area for the future. Therefore, continuous investment is required for future value, and although the cash flow may be negative or positive due to large investments, it is not significant. The second area represents the area with a low market growth rate but a high relative market share. This is called the cash cow area. The cash cow area has a low market growth rate, so there is no need for new investments, but the current market share is high, so profitability is very good and cash flow is excellent. It can be said to be a highly profitable area, so much so that it is called the golden cow. The third area represents the area with a high market growth rate but a low relative market share. This is called the question mark area. The question mark area belongs to high growth industries that require significant investments in the future because the market growth rate is very high. However, due to lack of competitiveness, market share is low and cash generation capacity is lacking. Therefore, a decision needs to be made on whether to borrow and invest or give up future investments, which is why it is called the question mark or problem child area. The fourth area represents the area with low market growth rate and low relative market share. This is called the dog area. The dog area has low growth rate and low market share, resulting in low current cash generation and dim prospects. Most often, it belongs to declining industries, and eventually, market withdrawal becomes inevitable. Now, let's take a closer look at the specific strategies for each of the four areas. There are generally 4 strategies for product-specific approaches: build, hold, harvest, and divest. Let's examine which strategy is suitable for each area. First, the build strategy refers to continuously investing to expand the company's scale in order to generate future profits. It is a strategy applicable to growth industries where most company resources will be allocated for investment in the future. It is a suitable strategy for the star area and the question mark area with high market growth rates. Secondly, the hold strategy is a strategy to maintain the current market share. No additional investment is needed in the future, and cash generation is excellent, so maintaining the status quo is a desirable strategy. This applies to the cash cow area and, in some cases, the star area as well. Thirdly, the harvest strategy is a strategy to maximize profits from existing investments. Since the market growth rate is low, it focuses on maximizing returns in the current situation. It is a strategy that can be chosen in the question mark area and the dog area. In the question mark area, if investment is not expanded in a growth industry, the harvest strategy is implemented. The fourth strategy is the divest strategy, which involves divesting and withdrawing from existing investments. It is a desirable strategy when the market share is low and the future prospects are not promising. This applies to the dog area, and in the case of the question mark area, it applies when there is a decision not to invest for the future. The BCG matrix we have explained so far provides significant insights into the composition of a company's business portfolio. Since most companies have limited resources, the BCG matrix can serve as a basis for determining which products to allocate more resources to for future production, whether to prioritize maximizing profits or improving market share. Therefore, the BCG matrix is also known as the growth share matrix or business portfolio analysis model.
Professor, I now fully understand the BCG matrix. Thank you.
Yes, so far we have explained the BCG matrix, which has many implications for composing a company's business portfolio. In the next session, we will discuss the G. McKinsey matrix. Thank you for your participation.